Hi guys, welcome to the CynicCast. As you all know, I'm Hugh, and right next to the left or right of me is Hans.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, normally I'm a lot more energetic with this, but as many of you guys know, in the media recently, I'm just gonna get to it. We're gonna talk about Adam Johnson. Unfortunately, Adam Johnson, who previously played for the Penguins in the Penguins farm system and with the Penguins, and some other teams that I cannot remember.
The
Unfortunately,
Ontario Reign, notably, he was part
yeah,
of the LA Kings organization,
yeah,
playing with the Reign.
and unfortunately, he passed away at the age of 29 after he was cut by a skate blade.
Yep.
And unfortunately, this is not the first time this has happened within the NHL, but unfortunately, it happened outside of the NHL. So obviously, there's a video of it online. I do not recommend you watch it. I hopefully that you hope that you don't watch it. It is out there if you are curious, but I don't recommend it. It's not for the faint-hearted. I'll leave it at
The
that.
algorithm, the ever so ungodly algorithm, tried to show me the footage, and I quickly swiped away because I felt, one, it's not very respectful to have a video of the actual incident itself uncensored on the internet, and two, it's just something that I didn't want to see.
And yeah, it's hard to look at that specific thing. I have always had a fascination with not a like I'm gonna say it's like death. That's super creepy, but morbid. The morbid parts of reality. It's weird. Sometimes
It's
I
a
watch
morbid curiosity,
yeah,
which is completely
basically.
valid.
Basically, and it's just really sad to have seen it. I didn't go through the whole video, but it wasn't the greatest sight. So I guess we're gonna jump right into the questions, and honestly, we can't really talk about this without mentioning a very infamous incident. Basically, in March of 1989, a buff player by the name of Clint Malarchuk, who was a goalie for the Sabres, but he also, if I remember correctly, played for the Nordiques and another team that I cannot remember off the top of my head. I'll probably just add it in the notes when I'm editing the video. But he was playing a game against the St. Louis Blues at Buffalo's stadium at the time, the Auditorium.
Yeah.
And a player, was a St. Louis Blues player by the name of Steve Tuttle, I think he was trying to go for the puck, and another player who I can't remember, even though I've watched the video, checked Tuttle. Tuttle went up in the air in a skate / Clint Malarchuk's neck. The footage is unfortunately available online.
As most things are.
Yeah, but it's the difference between the Johnson incident and the Malarchuk incident is that Malarchuk did survive. Unfortunately, the aftermath of it wasn't the greatest because he eventually ended up retiring from the league sometime in the early to mid 90s. There's a whole Players Tribune article, which I will link in the description below, and you can read kind of his insights into it. But basically, the reason why I mentioned Clint Malarchuk is that in his instance, he was close to dying. But at the time, they had a trainer on the Sabres who was a combat medic in Vietnam, and the actions of that combat medic, having seen intense combat in the Vietnam War, which itself was a dangerous war and a bloody war to begin with, the actions of that trainer saved his life. Now, how could team doctors and medics learn from this tragedy as well as previous tragedies like the Malarchuk incident and Richard Zednick's injury in 2008?
Yeah. I think we can put it very simply. If you feel like something wrong has happened, most likely it has, and you got to get onto the ice as soon as possible. I do not care who has possession of the puck. I do not care who, I don't care who the referee is. If a player goes down, you get on the ice. And I really want to see a more accountability from the officials. because a split-second decision can mean someone's life on the ice. Hockey is a dangerous sport, and we all know this, but it is the most dangerous sport in all of the major sporting competitions. It is the most dangerous because you're gliding on ice, on a skate blade, which is 2 knife edges. A lot of people don't know this about skate blades. Skates are designed in a way to melt ice and allow you to glide on a bead of water. And that's why hockey players can skate so fast. Skate blades are not designed to cut the ice, as most people think. It's designed to melt the ice and for you to glide on that water. And it immediately freezes afterwards because the ice is so cold. And the conditions in rinks are so cold. And skate blades are designed like this, not like this. So it's 2 knife edges on the end of the skates rather than 1 knife edge in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Which is double the amount of sharpness that people think is on the end of a skate blade. And most people will say, okay, well, if it's 2 times the amount of sharpness, don't you know about the whole 1,000 needles or 1,000 nails thing, where if you lay on a bed of 1,000 nails, you won't get hurt because of contact points and whatever? Sure, that's 1,000. We're talking about 2. We're talking about 2 knife edges. And that's why it's so dangerous. What can teams learn? Teams can learn. If your player goes down, as soon as you can, get the referee's attention. Because referees, especially in the NHL, are not good at their jobs. And I'm going to allude to something that happened in a game between Toronto and Boston, where Brad Marchand basically just completely destroyed one of the Toronto players in a game on Thursday. And Wes McCauley, who was the referee of that game, didn't call anything. He didn't call a penalty. Should have been a major. I mean, the guy was knocked out. I think it was Timothy Liljegren. I think I said that. And I'll continue. Timothy Liljegren. I forgot what I was saying because you leaving kind of distracted me. But what I'm trying to get at here is referees are getting worse and worse at doing their job, which is to not just officiate the game, but it's to protect the players and to understand when something is wrong. And because of that, I think that teams and trainers and doctors and head coaches need to step in and be like, no, we're going on the ice because our player is down. I don't care. So many times you see a player get hit or get into contact with another player, and the player goes down and the referee doesn't call anything. Because the referee's back is turned, or they're just like, all right, get up, just get up. It's just up, just get up. It's bad. It is. So I think that it's important for teams to advocate for their players, and I hope that not just coaches or doctors or whoever, but GMs, presidents, and owners start complaining to the league that their players are being put in positions of danger.
It's I wasn't able to hear the full thing because I had to step back for a second.
I kind of lost my train of thought anyway.
Either way, there's a lot to learn from it. And obviously, well, at least in the NHL as an example, neck protection has been mandatory for goaltenders since the Clint Malarchuk incident. Yeah. So obviously it's implemented for goalies, right? Mm-hmm. However, should the NHL and other leagues mandate the protection for all players, and how should it be implemented? Should it be kind of along the lines of how helmets used to be, where you could be grandfathered in,
Yeah.
or should it be more like forcing everyone to wear it regardless of when they sign a contract?
Well, I think that you have to look at when visors were mandated in the NHL, which I believe was 2008 or 2007. And before that, there were players that didn't wear visors. And there are still a couple of players in this league that don't wear a visor. So, in my opinion, if the league is going to implement anything, it's going to be a grandfather, there's going to be a grandfather clause where if you weren't wearing neck protection, then you can be grandfathered in to not wearing neck protection, even though neck protection is mandatory. But if you are entering this league, then you have to wear neck protection. My opinion is that everyone should wear neck protection. And neck protection has developed over the years to become better and better. I think very infamously, you had Thomas Plekanec, who was known as the turtleneck guy, because he wore a neck guard, right? He wore an article that covered his neck, and he wore it to protect his neck. The neck is one of the most vulnerable parts of the body. So I think that it should be mandated starting next season. So anyone drafted in 2024, if you want to play in the league, you have to wear neck guards. I also think that maybe they should take a look at implementing a mandatory neck guard rule for any player under the age of 25 and allowing players of the age of 25 or older to choose whether or not they wear neck guards. The reason I say 25 is because many players who are 25 years old are still on their restricted free agent contracts. They're not necessarily on their rookie deals, but they're still restricted to their team. And their team has more control over their contract, right? Their team has more control over the player in general because they have more control over their contract. So in my opinion, I think it's important that teams who have that control kind of delegate that control onto the players, like, aside from money. They should be able to tell their players, listen, the league is saying 25 or under, you should be wearing a neck guard, or you're mandated to wear a neck guard, so you're going to wear it. Like, we're going to make you wear it. But I do think that it has to come from the league. I don't think that teams like the Penguins and the Capitals, who are, like, looking to make neck guards more feasible as blah blah. To me, that's a bunch of horseshit. To me, it's a bunch of horseshit. I think that the league should just make it mandatory starting next season for any player under the age of 25 or that gets drafted.
I mean, it could be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction just because, granted, this already happened to a player, and it was a player that was within their system, at least for the Penguins. But it's better to just slowly implement it in for everyone rather than just go ham.
Yeah.
Because some players might be resistant. I mean, we've seen
I think some players will sit out. I think some older players will actually sit out if you force them to wear neck guards. But younger players, I mean, it's the way the NHL is. The younger you are, the less of a voice you have in this league. And I think the only exception to that is the core four in Toronto. Like, they love to be, flamboyant, and that's kind of their personality.
Yeah.
But apart from those four players, the majority of the league, if you're younger, then you're more reserved. And you can be the superstar of the NHL, aka Connor McDavid, and be a nothing burger when it comes to doing any press conference. And that's just because the culture of the league dictates that if you're below a certain age, usually it's 30. If you're below 30, shut the fuck up. Right? If you're not 30, don't open your mouth, which is a really bad way of running business. You want your youngest talent actually to be speaking up. And I think that because of that culture, there's no way that you could get 30-plus-year-olds to wear neck guards, or force them to, rather. I think some of them will. I think some of them, as soon as it's implemented, and it should be implemented right now for the next season. It should be that next season, every rookie needs to wear a neck guard. Every player under the age of 25 needs to wear a neck guard.
Yeah, I would agree 100%.
Yeah.
And my original third question just basically got answered by your question, so I'm going to ask this. So me, a little backstory. I'm a motorsports fan. I've always been a motorsports fan since I was younger. Hans knows this. I used to be a big NASCAR guy when I was younger, and I got roasted for it constantly by people I will not speak of. But anyways,
Hey man,
there was a
car turn left.
Exactly, even though they go right. But anyways, there was a driver by the name of Dale Earnhardt, legend. Every time you think of Dale Earnhardt, you think of the black number 3. Unfortunately, he passed away in an accident in the 2001 Daytona 500, and the cause of death was a basilar skull fracture. As a result of this and multiple other similar injuries suffered through the years, they implemented a system called the Hans device, which essentially attaches a neck brace to your helmet. It was introduced and mandated in NASCAR, and now it's mandated in racing leagues worldwide, everywhere from Formula One to like an FIA feeder series in Japan.
IndyCar, Daytona 500, NASCAR, everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Now, will this have a similar, this incident, the Adam Johnson incident, will this have a similar impact like within other leagues, like what happened with NASCAR and Dale Earnhardt? Do you feel like this would be the catalyst for all hockey leagues to mandate neck guards for players?
I sure as hell hope so. Because I think that the safety of the player is the most important thing. And you can say that I sound like a player agent right now. Honestly, if players want me as their agent, I'll advocate for them till I die. Because I advocate for the players. I know that I've criticized players on not being loud enough, like not having enough of a voice, but I advocate for players more than anything. I think it's important that players speak up about what's going on.
I 100%
think it's important that players make their voices heard, and if they want the change to occur, that they are vocal about it. And I know that certain players in the NHL want more protection as like for themselves and for their peers. Because the game shouldn't be, the sport of hockey should be a test of skill, endurance, and talent, not of resilience. Hockey is not a game that flourishes when the game is about endurance. Or sorry, not endurance, sorry, resilience. Because I just said it is endurance. You need to be able to endure a 60-minute match. But resilience and endurance are slightly different. What I mean by resilience is, Hugh's going to love this. Go back to the late 80s and early 90s.
Nice.
Go back to 2004. You know, when teams were averaging less than 3 goals a game.
The
when
Ted Puck era.
Scott Stevens was basically, committing murder on the ice.
You still had your essential enforcers. You also had your players who could score goals and also get into fights. Obviously, there was Claude Lemieux, there was Scott Stevens, Darcy Tuckers. There were a lot of enforcers.
So take that and look at where the game is now. Are we better off with those kinds of players out of the league? My opinion is yes. Because
very much
the game is faster, there's more goals, there's more excitement, the more penalties that get called, the more power plays happen. The more power plays that happen, the more goals that get scored. The more goals that get scored, the more crowd reaction you get. The more crowd reaction you get, the more satisfaction you get. If players want something implemented, then they need to speak up for it. And the introduction of mandatory neck guards is going to help players become more durable. Not resilient, but durable. Again, the idea of endurance doesn't get eliminated when you eliminate the idea of resilience. We don't need to protect ourselves from a goon, because what we're doing instead is outmaneuvering and outplaying the other team. We can focus on the skill. We can focus on the tactics and the complexity of hockey. Because not a lot is said about the complexity of hockey. Why? Because if someone doesn't like something, guess what? I'm going to bash your head in. And yes, the skate blade is a freak accident, but there are non-freak accidents in this league that could be remedied by the introduction of mandatory neck guards.
Now, with this, I'm trying to remember my thought because I'm trying to interject as best as possible with it. I'm trying to think what else. Shoot, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. We can just move on.
We'll
if
just
can't
move.
Think of it,
The
we
moral,
can move on to our next
the moral of the story is this: there's a lot of. Actually, now I remember what I was going to say.
There you go.
Players need to be able to speak up, like you said.
Yep.
If they can get the NHL to rescind their stance on pride tape, and then they can
That's a great example.
If they can change their stance on pride tape and make up enough of a fuss to the point that players are now allowed to wear it again, then I believe they can make a change in order to implement a little bit more safety in this league.
I agree.
That's really about it. Players can speak up. It would help the league benefit greatly, and players aren't going to be afraid of stepping onto the ice when some guy decides to, if they check some guy, because they don't want another injury like this. That's about it. The last thing I have to say about this, honestly, is rest in peace, Adam Johnson.
Rest in peace. Our condolences go out to his families, and his family rather, and we hope that for the future that we don't see this anymore.
Yeah,
we hope that Adam Johnson is the last person that has to fall victim to a skate blade injury to the neck.
Yeah, rest in peace. Okay.
Hard right turn, Hugh.
Yep. Alrighty, so now we got a huge update. Changing the tone. Now we have to talk about Evgeny Dadanov.
Here we go.
Dadanov.
Dadanov. There we go. Break the ice a little bit. So, shall I talk about what why this is so big?
Go ahead, my guy.
Actually, you know what? Let me introduce the story for people who don't remember. I feel like there's been so much coverage of it, but for the fans that only watch the CynicCast, let me tell you about what happened.
Do tell.
Evgeny Dadanov used to be a member of the Ottawa Senators. And he was traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Vegas Golden Knights. I believe this was in the off-season of the 2021-2022 season. This was in the off-season. 2021-22.
Oh, damn.
2022, that season, was the season that Vegas missed the playoffs. In part because when Vegas attempted to trade Evgeny Dadanov to the Anaheim Ducks, Evgeny Dadanov informed Vegas that the Anaheim Ducks were on his no-trade list.
Oh, shoot.
Hold on. When Evgeny Dadanov was traded from Ottawa to Vegas, Ottawa did not make aware to Vegas that Dadanov had a no-trade list. That he had a no-trade clause as a part of his contract. Ottawa just didn't tell him. Dadanov held firm on the fact that he had submitted his no-trade list. Ottawa had told Vegas there is no no-trade list. Therefore, when the trade attempted to go through, Dadanov was able to block it because in his physical contract that he signed with the Ottawa Senators, it stated that he had a no-trade list.
Oof.
And eventually, what we learned was that Evgeny Dadanov had emailed the Ottawa Senators with his no-trade list, and that the Ottawa Senators never replied. And that's the reason why, when Ottawa was asked, does Evgeny Dadanov have a no-trade clause from Vegas, they said no.
Nice. Well, it looks like the Ottawa Senators just messed up. You know, let's play that theme song.
Exactly.
That is literally that is dumb. Well,
It's
let
really
me ask,
dumb.
Well, now obviously, the fact that organization fucked this up so badly. Let me ask the first question, because in all honesty, it is appalling that a team forgets about a player's contract and the fact that he does not want to be moved to specific teams.
Yeah.
Let alone let the team that he's trading into let them know about that. How the hell does a team like this make such a terrible decision and not like let their player know? Like, how can you be this negligent?
You know what? The real answer, and I'm going to say it, the real answer to why the Ottawa Senators were so negligent is because of their owner. And people are going to think, wait, Michael Andlauer? No. Eugene Melnyk.
Rest in peace.
No.
Oh, he's
I
still
hope
alive?
he doesn't. I hope he doesn't, because that man was terrible for that organization. I just, like, okay. Is it sad when people die young? Yes. We just talked about Adam Johnson. And Eugene Melnyk passed away at the age of 64. Not old, right? He had I think it was kidney problems? No, it was liver problems. He had liver problems. And in fact, there was a very, very newsworthy headline many years ago when a patron of like Ottawa, like a citizen of Ottawa, in his like dying days, decided to donate his liver to Eugene Melnyk so that Melnyk could get a liver transplant. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And his only wish to Eugene Melnyk was, please, for the love of God, you know, I'm going to be dead, but I want you to take the Ottawa Senators and win a Stanley Cup with them. Never happened. And it's sad. So, Eugene Melnyk, he himself was an owner. But if you spoke to people who worked closely with the Ottawa Senators, you would think that he was an owner GM. Similar to Jerry Jones in the NFL, where he is not just the owner, but he hired himself to be the general manager, which is kind of crazy to think about. The only thing is, Eugene Melnyk had a general manager, Pierre, who would do Melnyk's bidding. And that was the reason why in 2018, the 2017-18 season, everything fell apart when they lost to Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference Final. Melnyk decided that he needed to overcorrect, that Kyle Turris was not good enough, that they needed Matt Duchene, and they were willing to give up 4 pieces, including the first-round draft pick that became Bowen Byram, who won a cup with the Colorado Avalanche in 2022, for Matt Duchene. Do we remember that era? Hugh doesn't, but many of you will. Matt Duchene, who was a part of the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Matt Duchene, who was a part of the Colorado Avalanche, his boyhood team, by the way, getting to play for both Joe Sakic and Patrick Waugh.
If that's not a dream.
If it was his dream to be around his heroes. And that 2017 photo shoot of him holding the hockey stick and just, I'm not happy to be here, because Colorado had finished like in last place by a wide margin. Like, it was really bad. The organization was just not being run well. And he was upset because he wanted to be a part of a playoff team. Gets traded to Ottawa, they missed the playoffs. That season, they missed the playoffs. And every season after that has been worse and worse for the Senators. And a lot of that had to do with the meddling. The meddling is most likely the reason why the Ottawa Senators didn't inform the Vegas Golden Knights that Evgeny Dadanov had a no-trade clause. It was Eugene Melnyk's fault, because he couldn't get his nose out of day-to-day operations.
Melnyk was clearly a terrible owner in his time. I mean, the Senators were kind of... I mean, aside from maybe getting Brady Tkachuk, there's really not a lot of good things.
It was a shoo-in to get Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, besides Brady Tkachuk.
There's nothing else. Why would... I mean, okay. It's not just Brady Tkachuk. Like, Melnyk was the owner when they went to the 2007 final, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, the Danny Heatley trade, when Danny Heatley scored 50 goals and he scored 50 goals again, right? The superstar line of Spezza, Heatley, and Alfredson, and, like, who was on that team? I mean, Charo was on that team before he got traded to Boston.
Ray Emery, who backstopped them to the final. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Ray Emery. He was the goalie for the final. But yeah, he was there for a while. He had owned the team for nearly 20 years before he passed away. But yeah, like, there were highlights, but there was so much more meddling as time went on. And that was the issue with Eugene Melnyk as the time went on, as his tenure as owner went on, is that it felt like he was calling the shots and that he was hiring puppets the entire time. And Pierre Dorion was one of the puppets that he hired. Pierre McGuire also, please remember. And no one forget that Pierre McGuire was like a special advisor to the owner for 1 year. Like the last year of Melnyk's tenure.
This is the same Pierre McGuire who was on TSN and Sportsnet and like...
This is the same Pierre McGuire who ran the Hartford Whalers into the ground. And actually part of the reason why... Bald head, Hugh. Bald head.
Yeah.
No. Glasses.
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
The same guy who helped Hartford just basically fail as an organization, eventually moving to Carolina. Like, yeah, Pierre McGuire was part of the reason why that organization failed.
Yeah.
It was awful. His tenure everywhere has always been awful. Especially on TV.
I just knew him from sports coverage. I had no idea he actually played a part on, like, a specific hockey team. So this is the first time I'm learning about this, so...
Yeah, the 2010 or 2009 gold medal game for the World Junior Championship, you know, it's like... Gord Miller and Pierre McGuire. Gord Miller's like, "Can you believe it?" And then the crowd is going crazy, and everyone's expecting, just shut up. And Pierre McGuire is like, "I can, because Malarkey and Babarkey and Cody Hodgson." And shut the fuck up, Pierre. Shut up. Let the crowd just soak up the energy.
It's just like, bruh.
Are you getting hot? Are you getting hot thinking about Pierre McGuire? It's so gross.
I know, that's very gross. I don't know why you're saying that, my guy. But, goddamn. Mm-hmm. The negligence is terrible. Yeah. Fuck you, Pierre McGuire, and fuck you, Eugene Melnyk, and... Yeah, fuck you, Ottawa.
I have no idea what's going on. You want to continue?
Yeah.
More questions for me?
The other question I'll have, obviously, well, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Ottawa basically fucked up big time.
Yep.
And they were stripped of a first-round pick.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
almost forgot about that.
Yeah, literally, in our whole tangent, we almost forgot about it. But the one thing I also realized, the NHL also gave them the option to pick a draft pick in the next few years. So basically, either 2024, 2025, or 2026. How is this draft gonna? How will this impact the future of the Senators, and also why do they have the option to even pick different? Like that's my question because obviously with a team before that with a team, that's like let's say for example, what's his name? Like Max Verstappen's team gets found out to be cheating or something and to gain an unfair advantage. Sure. So they decide, you are banned for a whole season, but you have to pick within the next 3 seasons which season you have to sit out for. Or something. I'm like, that makes no sense. Or like getting the Houston Astros to sit out an entire season because they cheated in 2017. So I was like, you could sit out 2020 or whatever. I'm like, no.
Yeah. So something you're asking me why even give Ottawa the option?
Yeah, why?
So it's kind of a two-pronged answer. Number one is the NHL recognizes that a previous owner was under, the Ottawa Senators were under the tutelage of a previous owner. A previous ownership group, a previous management group that included Pierre McGuire when this happened. And the NHL also recognizes that they just got Michael Andlauer, who is the new owner of the Ottawa Senators, to pay $950 million for this organization. I want to remind everybody that the expansion cost for the Vegas Golden Knights was like $500 million. So the fact that an already established team was bought for nearly double the price, a team that has never won a Stanley Cup, a team that has only been to the Stanley Cup final once, and has only been to the Eastern Conference final twice, and I think the Stanley Cup final year was the only other time, and it was 2007, 2017. Those are the only 2 times they went to the Eastern Conference final and only been to the Cup final once, and they only played 5 games. It was really sad. So with that history, and having Michael Andlauer pay $950 million, which was $100 million more than what Andlauer's highest bid was. Andlauer said $850, take it or leave it. And Gary Bettman was like, Michael, we like you. We need you. We want you to be the owner. Snoop Dogg can go fuck himself.
I mean, it would have been awesome to see Snoop Dogg invest.
They were willing to pay up to $1 billion, Hugh.
Snoop Dogg would have been awesome.
Him and Nico Sparks, which was the group those would have been your co-CEOs, right? Your co-presidents of the Ottawa Senators or co-CEOs, co-owners. They would have had an ownership group willing to pay $1 billion to the NHL, and Gary Bettman was like, no, we don't want Snoop, we don't want you. And it's just, I don't know, I just feel like there's a hint of racism in there. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but maybe a little bit of racism. I mean, Gary is an old white man, so.
Gary Bettman, we clearly know that you have a bias against Canada. I mean, there's a reason why Canada hasn't won a fucking Stanley Cup since 1993. But we didn't know you had a race. Yeah, we didn't know you had a racial bias too, man.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Old white people have racial biases. Old people
and
have
of course,
biases.
Of course, they also pick Andlauer, who
was a minority owner for the Habs before being a majority owner of the Senators.
And literally runs, as I'm seeing this on like Wikipedia and doing the search, like he literally runs healthcare companies. He runs healthcare companies. The guy is loaded.
The guy's loaded
and
with money.
Of course, they're going to pick the dude who's loaded with money instead of someone who would be able to clearly spread the view or spread like Ottawa Senators to a whole new fan base. Let's give it to the old guy and then have the old guy split it with a bunch of other people.
I will say Andlauer isn't the worst pick for owner. Like, there were a couple picks where it was just like, yeah, we're going to own it and we're not going to do anything and we're not going to open up LeBreton Flats as an option. We're going to keep the team in Canada. And no, I'd rather have Andlauer than them for sure. But huge tangent. Let's get back on topic. The reason why they have a choice is because, one, new ownership group, they don't want to cripple the ownership group. And two, when the New Jersey Devils signed Ilya Kovalchuk to a 17-year contract, they were fined a draft pick. They were fined $3 million in a draft pick. And they got the choice of which draft pick it could be. Similar to this situation. Did the New Jersey Devils give up any of the draft picks that were potentially slated to be given up? The answer is no. Because the league said, this happened 4 years ago. We think that you've learned from your mistakes. So we're going to just forget about it. You can keep your draft pick. Because the league allows teams to kick cans down the road until it's been kicked far enough that the league can't see it anymore.
The league is basically allowing them to keep it.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah. The Ottawa Senators will just keep all their picks. They'll keep the 2024 pick. They'll kick the can down the road. They'll keep the 2025 pick. Kick the can down the road. By 2026, this is old news. Gary's going to be 80. And Gary Bettman's going to forget that it even happened.
It feels as if they're intentionally trying to avoid it. It's not the first time. If I remember, it's not the first time the NHL will just slap someone on the wrist for things like that. If I remember correctly, I think a few years back, didn't Tampa technically win a Stanley Cup while over the salary cap?
Well, no, they were really smart about LTIR.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Montreal fans were really pissy about the whole $98 million of cap, but the reason why is because in the playoffs the salary cap doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird... Okay. Again, tangent time. Rory is here for a tangent. All right?
I'm back to normal Hugh.
You're back to normal Hugh. So, tangent time. The salary cap in the CBA has some weird clauses. And one of the clauses is that the salary cap basically doesn't count in the playoffs. You have a salary cap during the regular season. Right now it's $83.5 million.
Remember when it's $43 million?
Don't remind me of the terrible times, Hugh. Don't remind me of the bad days. The days when I stopped watching hockey, basically. When the cap was dead and everything was dead. So, the NHL has a salary cap. Right now it's $83.5 million. And the cap is in effect during the regular season. Which means if you have $1 over the cap this year, guess what? You have $1 less to work with the next year. In the regular season. As soon as the regular season ends, you can now go over the cap. Because there is no salary cap in the playoffs. Tampa had 2 players on LTIR. Ryan McDonough and Nikita Kucherov. And very conveniently, the first day of the playoffs, Nikita Kucherov came back from LTIR.
Oh my god.
Very conveniently. Very, very, very conveniently, Nikita Kucherov was on the day 1 roster.
Was he injured?
He was. I don't know if he was injured during the regular season. They said he was. Oh yeah, Nikita Kucherov was injured.
It's a conspiracy,
maybe. Right? For all intents and purposes, Nikita Kucherov was injured during I believe it was the 2020-2021 season. This
was the lockout shortened season. The pandemic shortened season.
It wasn't the quarantine or the lockdown shortened season. It was the bubble season.
Yeah,
it was the bubble season.
Mm-hmm.
So during the bubble season, there was no Nikita Kucherov. And Kucherov comes back, game 1 of the playoffs.
Oof.
Hello, NHL, knock knock, Gary. Oh, okay. Everyone's ears just died. I have a mouse pad that I knocked on. Much better. Gary, old man Gary, Cap convention is happening in your league. Your hard cap is being shit on. It's a travesty. Are you going to do anything about it? No. No, because it's the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it's an American team, and also because Steve Yzerman isn't on the team anymore, so they can win their cups now. Because for some reason, there's this weird rift between Steve Yzerman and Gary Bettman. I've never understood it. I don't think they like each other.
I don't think a lot of people like Gary Bettman, though.
No, there are some owners and general managers that love Gary Bettman. There are some, like Murray Edwards, the owner of the Calgary Flames. The guy loves Gary Bettman. Jeremy Jacobs, the owner of the Boston Bruins, loves Gary Bettman. Francesco Acquavini loves Gary Bettman. So, tangent number 2 over. I've answered the question. They've given them the option to take one of 3 picks because by 2026, Michael Andlauer hopefully doesn't have to give up that pick anymore and they get away from this scot-free. And also, it's because Michael Andlauer didn't make this decision to trade Dadanov to the Vegas Golden Knights. It was Eugene Melnyk and Pierre Dorian. Which should lead you into the final question.
What's the final question, you may ask? I'm kidding, though. Anyways, obviously he was fired as a general manager.
Yep.
Why did they do it now instead of much later?
They did it now because Andlauer needs someone to take the bullet for this. Also, Pierre Dorian is the kind of last vestige of the Eugene Melnyk years. I mean, DJ Smith was hired while Melnyk was alive, but he's a head coach. And this isn't a head coaching issue. This is a management issue. This is a front office issue. And Pierre Dorian was the last vestige of the Eugene Melnyk front office. And for him to take the bullet, it just makes sense. Ownership will always... Listen, I work in retail. Hughes worked in retail for a very long time. Technically, you still work in retail, but it's a more specialized retail. That's why I don't count it.
It's specialized retail, but in all honesty, it's like I try to consider it just my way of making money.
Yeah, it's
this
a job.
This is my job.
I work in retail. Hughes worked in retail. We both know that if there is a mistake that's made that is gruesome, the person who gets fired is not necessarily the person who okayed the decision at the top, but the person who carried out the decision at the bottom. If you got an order from your supervisor to do something, and that, it fell flat on all of your faces, the supervisor's going to get protected. Because they're going to say, I told this person to do this, and they did this instead, and they should be fired. Because you can't fire me. Because I have certain protections as a member of management.
Mm-hmm.
And the grunt is going to get fired. Because the manager has certain protections. They just do.
Mm-hmm.
But Andlauer has no loyalty to Pierre Dorian. He just bought this team in the summer. This is his first year owning the team, and Pierre Dorian has been around for more than half of a decade. It's time for him to go.
He basically got Bruce Boudreau.
No, because Bruce Boudreau was forced out by a general manager who thought the team could do better, and then hired a coach that he wanted, and then got fired. It was a really weird situation in Vancouver.
Well, rest in pepperoni, Dorian.
Rest in pepperoni. He's not dead, but he can rest in pepperonis.
Literally, he's pretty much That's overall the Ottawa Senators have done goofed, but not as bad as this next team. We're going to talk about this briefly because there's one more topic I want to talk about. But yeah, the Sharks are about to tie the record for their worst regular season losing streak in history. They lost yesterday. I believe it was yesterday.
It was Thursday.
It was Thursday because today
is Saturday, Hugh.
Today is Saturday, but we're
That's
breaking
why
the fourth
it's
wall.
nighttime, and we're uploading this in the day.
We record this on
we
Fridays.
We will consistently break the fourth wall on this podcast.
Yes, I'm going to do that right now.
Every
but regardless,
single episode.
Regardless, they lost 10-1 against the Canucks, and
it was really runny.
I didn't believe it until I saw memes of it. I thought,
Did
who the
you
fuck?
see the kid who was holding the "This is my first
No.
Sharks game," and then the
No.
score at the bottom 8-0.
Oh no! Oh no! I saw mentions of it on Reddit, and I felt so
I
bad
saw
for
the
the kid.
picture. It's
Can
so
you?
funny.
Okay, send me the photo. I'm gonna add it in here so we
Sure.
can display it.
Why not?
I want to see. I feel so bad for the kid.
Well, you
And-
know what? Let's use it as the thumbnail.
Actually, I had
Yeah.
a different idea. I had a different idea for the thumbnail, but yes, please do that. That is
Yes.
much better. That's much better because we need something happy to lead in on.
Oh,
this.
yeah.
But anyways, why are they this bad? That's about it.
Okay.
Why?
Let's talk about why they're this bad. Okay. Oh,
But before we say this, I will say this: they're about to equalize their previous record. This is not the first time they've been this bad.
I think I should address the elephant in the room here, because I kind of like skirted this way and I shot. So that's Piplup.
You should bring Piplup up to the camera.
I should
Grab him.
probably bring Piplup up to the camera, but I will bring Piplup up to the camera in another day. This is my emotional support animal. Everyone in the comments who made it this far, who made it 50 minutes into the podcast, you can comment on how adorable Piplup is. Usually I try to put my shoulders like this so that nobody sees it, but you guys can see Piplup now. So say hi to Piplup.
Yo, what's up, Piplup? My G.
That works. Okay, let's talk about how bad and why they're so bad and being the Sharks. They can't score. They cannot score a goal to save their lives. I mean, yeah. They got shut out twice already this season. What are they right now? 0-9-1 or 0-8-1?
So if we're gonna take overtime losses into account, they're 0-9-1. They have
0-9-1.
one overtime loss. I feel like they've only scored 1 point. Basically, they're that.
So they've
bad.
scored 1 point this season, and it was an overtime loss. What a shit team. So I'm sorry, Sharks fans. You don't deserve this. You should just cheer for a different team. You have Seattle, which I wouldn't pick Seattle. You have Colorado, and you have Anaheim, because there really isn't like a Sharks-Ducks rivalry. So
You
those
forgot
are the
the
three
LA
teams.
Kings too.
No. Sharks and Kings fans don't fucking like it. Hugh, you're going to cause a war. Don't do that.
Guys, if you're a Sharks fan and you can't watch the Sharks anymore, just watch the Kings.
No,
I'm saying
to
this.
hit you.
I know they will. I'm kidding.
They're
By
going
the way,
to kill you. Actually, Sharks fans will probably find you and murder you.
I have a friend who's a Kings fan, and I know he watches these videos. So if you see this, I apologize for saying this. I'm a very evil person.
He's gonna love it because he's like, yeah, Sharks fans are stupid because they watch a dumb, stupid, poopy team. And I mean, they are poopy.
God.
Like, they're so bad. And yeah, because they can't score. They got shut out twice. They've scored only 1 goal, like, for every single loss except for 1 game, which they also lost. Like, they scored 3 goals, but they lost. I think they lost 5-3 that game. And every other game, they've scored either 1 or 0 goals.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the 1 goal that they scored on Vancouver was a pity goal. I saw that goal go in. That was not a hard goal for it. Like, basically Vancouver was like, fucking hell, we're done. We've killed this team. Vancouver scored a touchdown, an extra point, and a field goal.
Oh, Jesus.
In a hockey game. They scored 10 points. The Chicago Bears can't score 10 points. The Denver Broncos couldn't score 10 points until they played against Kansas City Chiefs. Like,
oh my
there
Lord.
are football teams that can't score 10 points this season, and the Canucks scored 10 goals.
I think the entire amount of points the Sharks have scored was equalized. I saw a picture of it saying all these players have more. This player has more points than the entire Sharks roster, and I'm just like,
it's so sad.
They're that bad.
It's so sad, and they can't score. They can't stop the puck. So it's not just that their offense can't score. I feel bad because this team used to have like Timo Meyer, and this team used to have prime Logan Couture and Thomas Hertl. And I mean, they're still there. They're still there, but they're just not prime anymore. They're past their prime. They used to have prime Pavelski, which he's 39 years old and still in his prime. What the hell, Joe? Why? Why are you so good at hockey? You should be retired now.
I mean, he's killing it over in Dallas with Rupe Hintz. And Robo, Jason Robinson, and all the other awesome players Wyatt Johnston. They have.
Look out for Wyatt Johnston this season. He looked great last year in the playoffs. He's going to be fantastic this year. I think he's already got a couple goals and a couple points. But Sharks. Now, this season is over. Yeah. Honestly, if I'm the Sharks, I'm looking to set the record for most losses in a season, which is 70.
I should also add this as well. Their current losing streak also extends into the preseason. So if they lose, I believe it's this upcoming game, and I believe one more, they will pass their worst record, which was held by the 1992-1993 Sharks previously.
Yeah,
and the worst
season.
And the worst team in history, the 1974-1975 Washington Capitals, who won, I believe,
8 games.
Yes.
They went 8-70-2 because it was 80 game seasons back then.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's not the most amount of losses, the most amount of losses is held by the Sharks. I believe they went 10-71-1, or it might have been 9-71-2.
I would have to check this later.
It's fine. We don't have to fact check it. It's bad, is what it is. Like, the worst seasons have been the Ottawa Senators, 10 wins. The San Jose Sharks, pretty sure it was 9 wins, and the Washington Capitals, 8 wins. With the pace that the Sharks are on right now, Hugh, just off the top of your head, do you think you could do it, or shall I tell you what pace they're on for points as a team on the season? Should I just tell you what it is?
At this point, I'm going to guess like they'll make max of 10 points if they continue.
They're on pace for 8 points.
Jesus Christ, I'm being generous.
That's 4 wins. They are on pace for 8 points. This is the worst NHL team. If this pace goes, like, if this pace continues, and they go 9-1, 0-9-1 for the next 10 games, and 0-9-1 for the next 10 games, they will end with a record of 0 blank and 8. The blank would be 74. This team is on pace to lose 74 games.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
And that's regular season losses. Because right now they have 0 wins. So technically speaking, the San Jose Sharks are on pace to win 0 games. And in the NHL, that has never happened. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this Sharks team can get maybe
1 or 2 wins.
10. Maybe 10. But, like, the Vegas odds, I wouldn't be surprised if you look at the odds right now of, like, NHL futures, plus-minus wins. I wouldn't be surprised if the plus-minus is 8.5. And you would have to pick over-under.
They're literally going to destroy the whole team if this keeps up. The coach is probably going to get fired, like...
I think everyone should be fired.
Everyone's gone, basically. The whole team should be imploded. Everything, including their shitty jerseys right now. Please bring back the OG.
Yeah, I want to
the OG jerseys.
Sharks jersey again. I would love to see it.
I'm sick of this all teal bullshit. Like, there's some teams that, going off on a quick tangent before we finish with my last topic, all these teams that change their looks and then add, like, different colors and shit, that's, like, what? For example, the Avs. I love the Avs' current look, but I still miss the black pants and the black helmet.
I completely agree.
I don't know
completely
why.
agree.
I don't know why they changed that look
It was Joe.
to be like red
Joe
and
wanted
blue.
something fresh. I understand Joe wanted something fresh, but no, the black pants were so iconic.
They are literally. There's a picture of Joe Sakic wearing that black CCM helmet.
Yeah,
And that's what I think of when
white jersey too. The white jersey with the big foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so good. Those are my childhood years, man. That's when I became an Avalanche fan.
I miss that era so bad. Or
It's
like
okay.
hell, the Sharks or OG jerseys, or even their like 2000s jerseys with black pants and not this all teal bullshit that we have now. That is my
Sharks
tangent.
jersey, Hugh. My favorite Sharks jersey is the all black jersey with the old logo. You remember that? The all black jersey.
I saw it in
good.
I remember seeing it in NHL 07. I fucking loved their.
Exactly.
I loved going through the games and just like playing with the different alternate jerseys.
The jersey history. I love them. I love seeing the jersey history.
I mean, next fucking episode, you'll see me wear a Hartford Whalers jersey or something.
Jesus.
If that gives you an idea of how much I like my old school jerseys, but
that's true.
What can you do?
Do we have anything else to talk about?
This is one important thing I wanted to mention. Mm-hmm. So this is before we ended off, but basically, recently there was a staffer on the Seattle Kraken who came out officially as gay.
Nice.
And I'm saying this mainly because obviously with the recent issues that the NHL's had with
pride
and people and like pride tape and all this stuff and the lack of support that the NHL is showing, it's good that there's someone who's coming out and basically being like an advocate for the community within the NHL, because obviously there are people who support gay rights and all walks of life of people who support hockey. But if there was someone like that to come out while they're on a team, whether it be staff or hell, if a player is in the closet, this might inspire them to come out. That needs to be seen more in the league. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't you agree more?
I absolutely agree. I don't want to say too much because we are running over time. Yeah. But I actually want to quote someone very prominent in Canadian political history, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And he said, and I quote, "The government does not belong in the bedrooms of Canadians." And what that quote meant is that any organization should not interfere with what happens in the private lives of Canadian citizens. This goes for your home is your castle law, where homeowners have free range of what can happen inside their home, but it also applies to sexual orientation. It applies to everything. It applies to religion, it applies to sexual orientation, it applies to cultural norms. You can keep your culture and be a part of Canada. And that was the point of that statement. It was a multi-pronged statement. Obviously, people took it to mean one thing or the other, but it was a multi-pronged statement. And I live by that statement. I believe that privacy is important because it allows people to be comfortable in how they act, with how they live their lives. The caveat that I add to Trudeau's famous quote is that not only should people have the privacy to live their lives, but they should be able to live their lives without scrutiny. And I think that's one of the hidden messages that he also meant within that quote. Was it's not just like organizations shouldn't meddle in the private lives of individuals, but it's that individuals should feel comfortable with their life choices. People who are part of the LGBT community should be able to live normal lives without scrutiny, without hate, without animosity, Similarly to how straight white people should be able to live their lives without hate or scrutiny. Similar to how black people should be able to live their lives without hate or scrutiny toward them. Similar to how indigenous people should be able to live their lives without hate or scrutiny. All people deserve respect, kindness, and the ability to live their lives the way they choose to live, as long as you don't harm another soul. I got no problem with what you're doing.